And the countdown is on, and the countdown is almost to zero, y'all. SEC college football is here. It is Saturday, week one of the SEC college football season. I'm Lauren Sisler. I'm hyped up. That's Matt Scalisi. He's hyped up.
This is
What's
as
going
hyped
on,
up
Matt?
as I get. That's right.
How you feeling? How you feeling this morning, man?
Good, man.
It is what 10:26 a.m. and we are rocking and rolling as we get ready to kick off the SEC football season. You feeling good about it?
Definitely. I'm ready. I'm ready to see it happen again, and hope everybody stays safe out there, and that we just get some nice, clean, fun football today.
Hey, I feel good about it. I think these last several weeks and what we've seen from college football and various conferences, I've covered a couple games for ESPN, and I feel like they're doing a good job of maintaining the protocols, doing everything they can to keep everyone safe. And so far, so good. Obviously, COVID is still very present, and we saw that on this Missouri team. We still don't quite know what those numbers are going to look like for Missouri as they, I guess, release their final depth chart before kickoff. We don't even know who the starting quarterback's going to be for Missouri yet. But we'll start off the top, Matt. One thing you are most excited to see today from the Alabama Crimson Tide as they travel to Como.
I think that they're, we kind of got a decent look at what this team is made of in its current state because of the way that last season went down, right? I mean, it was unfortunate for Alabama and for everybody that was a big fan of Tua Tagovailoa and that offense. But what ended up happening gave Mac Jones a head start on what he was going to have to do this season. It gave him some very valuable experience out there on the field leading this offense. He does lose some key pieces, but actually had a lot of those key pieces come back, way more than anybody really expected. So here we are now with another high-powered offense, which should be a high-powered offense for Alabama. A really experienced and huge offensive line, some really talented skill position players, both at running back and wide receiver, and a quarterback that we've now seen can really be very effective in this offense. So, I think this Alabama offense, I'm expecting to see them kind of come out swinging again, and it will be fun to see that in action again. I think that was really – it got overshadowed because of all the injuries becoming the main narrative for Alabama last year. But when that Alabama offense was firing, it was really fun to watch. And I'm excited to see some of that again.
Yeah, I am like literally on the same page with you because I think now, to your point, the injuries, Tua Tagovailoa, the hip injury, Mac Jones obviously gets to start the last 4 games of the season. But, it really was never his team, right? It was never really his team, and it was kind of the sort of passing of the torch by default because of the injury. And so I think that now that this is Mac Jones's team, he gets named the starter. Of course, you have Bryce Young. He's the blue chip quarterback out of California that everybody wants to see.
And we might see some of him today.
And I was about to say, when we get to our bold prediction, I might squeeze that one in there. We'll see. But, I will say that now that this is Mac Jones's team, as Mike McCoy, who we do head-to-head with every week, likes to call him Mac 10. I love that. Mac Jones, I'm just excited to see his development, his growth, his maturity. And to your point, all of the weapons that come back behind him, obviously the running back, the stable of receivers, everything that they've got going for them. I think offensively, this is going to be phenomenal. And I would be remiss if I don't give a shout out to the offensive line and my boy Kyle Flood from Rutgers. He was there when I was at Rutgers a very, 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 very long time ago, 02 to 06. He was there under Coach Schiano and then took over the head coaching job. But I'm excited to see that. And I think this offensive line is perhaps one of the best in the country. And so I think that this offense, I'm just excited to see what this offense can unload. And of course, it is Missouri. So that gets me to my next question. Biggest challenge Missouri poses. This Missouri team has had a lot of COVID cases. We were trying to kind of dig back because I know about a week or so ago, we were hearing it was upwards of 12 COVID cases that potentially guys being out, not available to play for Missouri. But I'll tell you, that's such a big factor for a lot of these football teams because they're getting tested, if not every day. Most teams are getting tested 3 days a week. And so they'll get tested on Thursday, tests come back Friday. But we, even in the media, don't even hear about it until right before kickoff. And so I think that is just a big factor in this because you got guys shuffling around. You're having to move them all over the place to fill in some of those holes. And in terms of depth, I don't think Missouri quite has the depth that maybe an Alabama football team has, this early coming out of the gates this season.
I mean, really, almost nobody has the kind of depth Alabama does. I think it's so hard to predict what this season is going to look like as it goes along. There's so many chaotic elements involved. But, I do think in a season where there are factors we've never seen before that could remove players from competition, depth becomes more important than ever. And that puts really your classic blue chip programs in the best possible position. It's going to be your Alabamas and your LSUs and Georgias and Ohio States and the teams that maybe on everybody's best day, your lower ranked teams can have a great game from their starters and compete with the starters from Alabama and LSU and those types of teams. But when everybody's losing 5, 10, 15 players for various reasons, that's when it starts to become evident that the players farther down the roster for Alabama and those other top programs are really very similar to the guys at the top. And I think that's a strength that Alabama is going to have going in their favor all season. I think for teams like Missouri and what we heard about the struggles that they've had in fall camp with COVID taking guys out for extended periods of time, it's going to be rough on them. In terms of the challenge they pose on Alabama, I think Missouri's defense was really underrated last year. They didn't get a lot of talk because of how bad their record was, but they were a strong team defensively, particularly up front. And, that is a strength for Alabama. We just talked about the offensive line, but it's going to be a very early, challenge for this Alabama offense to say, can we give Mac Jones enough time to do his magic and get the ball in the hands of the playmakers and give them some space to do what they do. So they're not gonna ease their way into this season. This is actually going to be a pretty good challenge from a Missouri defense that has a lot of talented people, has an all SEC, returning all SEC linebacker in the middle there. So this is a team that can give that Alabama offense some struggles.
Yeah, I think one thing I'm looking at for this Missouri football team too is, their new head coach, Eli Drinkwitz, has not named a starting quarterback. Of course, the thought process is it's going to be, Sean Robinson, a redshirt junior that comes in. I think that, by all accounts, he's probably the guy, but they've got 4 quarterbacks that have been rotating in, part of the quarterback competition. But I think that all that to say, it's sort of just the preparation that Alabama has had, not really quite knowing exactly who they're preparing for. What is this team going to look like? You might be preparing for some of these star players that may not even play and may not even be on the depth chart and dressed out because of COVID. And so, I think there's a lot of factors there because you try your best to prepare for the team that you're going to get on the field on Saturday, but especially with COVID and everything that they're dealing with. And then I'm anxious to see, obviously one of the SEC's top running backs and Larry Roundtree, Jalen Knox, a tremendous receiver for them. So, I am excited to sort of see what this Missouri offense looks like, under first-year head coach Drinkwitz, and really just what this Missouri team, puts out on the field and sort of the challenge that they present. So I'm just excited to see, a team versus a team right now, and I'm excited to see how both those teams match up. And I agree with you. I think it's going to be a fun matchup to watch. I don't think it's just a walk in the park that we're just going to see Alabama roll over them. I think when all's said and done after 4 quarters, it's going to be a pretty big gap in the score. But I think like any team, they're going to have to definitely like shake off the rust, sort of get in, get settled in and kind of get things going. So, but I expect to see some explosive plays from Alabama and really kind of carrying some momentum as we get into the second half of the football game and close things out in the fourth quarter. And so last question for you, and I'll go first on this one because I already alluded to it earlier, bold prediction for this one. We're not talking about a score, Matt. I do think there is a good possibility that we're going to see Bryce Young. And here's the thing, and this is one conversation I want to get into with you real quick and get your thoughts on it. So with the fact of COVID, basically every player could come, like this could be a redshirt year for pretty much anyone, correct? I mean,
That's right.
So my thing is if this game is in hand, there's no thought process of like, oh, let's just sit Bryce out. We're gonna redshirt him this year. In theory, Alabama can play him as much as they want and still redshirt him for the next 4 years. So really, they're in a good position to bring him in and play him. So my bold prediction, and really, I don't know that it's that bold because I think Alabama will have enough of a pad there in the third and fourth quarter to get Bryce Young in and get some reps going. I don't know.
Yeah, nobody really knows 100% how that's all going to work when this shakes out, but it seems pretty clear that for the next few years, if you're playing college football this year and you want to stay for maybe an extra year off of what you would normally be allotted, you're probably going to be able to. You're at least going to be able to make a case to the NCAA. I think for a lot of guys that go to Alabama, it's not usually about that. It's not usually guys typically petitioning for like a fifth year because so many of these guys end up leaving for the NFL as soon as there sort of is an appetite for them in the league. But because of that, I think because of what's going on, I do think you're going to see Alabama and Nick Saban be maybe even a little bit more willing than usual to put young guys out on the field. And, they've honestly, traditionally, it hasn't been much of an issue to get on the field as a freshman under Nick Saban. He tends to be in favor of that and likes putting guys out there when they're ready. But I think it's going to be even easier to do so this year when there's an opportunity, when Alabama is able to build a big lead. I think you're going to see the whole squad go out there of young guys to get some experience and get some reps out there, especially considering that there are not non-conference games this year, which is typically where those guys would get a lot of that early playing time. So, you have to take those reps when you can. And I think if Alabama builds a nice pad of a lead going into the fourth quarter, you could see guys like Bryce Young. You could see a bunch of other young guys that we haven't seen before out there in some key roles.
No doubt about it. And I'm just going to chime in on one of our commenters here. Senator Hines says, "Where is your Bama gear at? How are you reporting Bama news without Bama gear?" I know. I'm sorry. I don't have Bama gear. I need to work on that.
Listen, we're trying to stay
fair and balanced
down the line here and objective. All right.
Yes.
Lauren has football related gear on, I
do. Thank you.
That should be good enough. I'm actually wearing a shirt from my favorite comic book shop here in Birmingham because I'm a huge nerd, but I also am a nerd about football. So we are two football nerds that are pumped to watch football all day long today.
Let's go.
Right.
Super pumped.
I'm not going to do that because Lauren will make me look bad.
Matty Ice, always good, always fun to chat with you. Obviously, big day of games coming up. We'll be kicking things off for the Crimson Tide at 6:00 on ESPN. So we'll be hanging out, maybe dipping into some chips and dip. I think I have a frozen pizza downstairs that I'm going to go eat. I know you just fixed big old breakfast.
That's right.
It's game day.
Whenever I get hungry again, which will probably be a long time, I've got barbecue ready to go. So
yeah, baby, that's right. Hey, get y'all game day fixings out. It's time. It's ready to roll. Thank you so much. We appreciate you guys, and we'll be back here for a post-game recap later on tonight and many hours from now. I can't even do the math.
Right.
I guess probably like 12 hours from now when you really think about it. So, hey, we appreciate y'all for watching. We'll check you on the backside.